All right, happy Wednesday, folks. For today's class, as a couple notes before we dig into We Can Save Us All. First off, I am posting the fifth installment from our communal writing projects below. So as always, we'll be open for discussion around those. For tracks B and C, this is sort of the penultimate stop. We'll have just one more entry coming in on Friday. And for track A, we'll have two more entries, just the way the numbers worked out. We have 19 students in the class, so it wasn't a quite even split. But in any event, for Friday's class, I do want to have some stage of kind of debriefing and kind of just talking about what the process was like of participating in this, including, for the folks who started this process, what it was like to start a story knowing you weren't going to be able to finish it, and kind of leaving material for other people, and where things went and kind of how you feel about how the story went relative to what you may have been thinking early on. For folks who went at some stage in the middle, sort of what that was like. In some ways, there were advantages. There's not the pressure of kind of a blank page and starting something. There's also not the burden of having to come up with a good ending. But at the same time, it's also its own challenge, right? To kind of have that middle space of kind of furthering a story, but also knowing that you're not going to get to wrap it up. So what that experience was like. And then for our people who ended it, what that was like, what that will be like, I guess, we're kind of speaking in the future tense now, but sort of, what maybe you kind of got from that process, what was challenging about that, if you felt any pressures around that after, 5 or 6 students kind of participated in these stories before you, or if that sort of felt easy and satisfying, if it sort of, everyone had laid the groundwork and you were just kind of taking it home. I can imagine people having really different reactions about all that, so I'll be interested to hear what you all have to say. So we'll talk about more of that on Friday. So just, I mentioned it now just to get the wheels turning and be thinking about it. And also, so, we can talk about that a little bit in today's discussion, but, know that that is coming more formally for the class the next time we drill into communal writing project work. The other piece I want to touch on before we get into the text is for critical essays. I have started going over them. I'm hopeful either later today or the latest tomorrow I will start posting some grades and feedback. As I put in the written comments for yesterday's class, I do that on kind of a rolling basis. So some of you might have feedback as soon as today or tomorrow. Some of you might not get that feedback for another couple days. Rest assured, I will get to everyone as long as I have a paper from you. It's my instinct that it's better to not make people just kind of unnecessarily wait. I want to, give you feedback just the way I would kind of want feedback if I were submitting work, as soon as I can get it. So that means, some people, again, will get feedback, really soon, and some might take a few days. I am very much on pace to be able to finish this by the end of the weekend. In fact, it's even possible I might be able to finish this before the weekend, which I'd love to just give you all that feedback, and also just for my own workload, obviously that's preferable not to have papers hanging over my head for the weekend. So that's kind of the goal at this point. We'll see how it pans out, but for sure by the end of the weekend, I hope to have that to everyone, because I know it can be a little nerve-wracking just to know, where you stand from a grading kind of perspective, and just to get some feedback on your hard work. I do appreciate that. It seems like, from the papers I've looked at so far, people did take this seriously, did work hard, and I'll have some comments for you, of the good, the bad, the in between, and all of that. Okay, so to drill into We Can Save Us All, again, these are big chunks of this book I'm assigning, usually over the course of a couple days. So I can't go over everything here in the video lecture, but feel free to address other points, in addition to or beside the points that I'm bringing up here, in the discussion thread. A number of you have been doing a great job of that throughout the class. And then also for those of you who haven't yet submitted, the 6 required journal responses, or if you have submitted 6 but still want to submit more, feel free to use that space also to engage a little bit more in depth about topics that might have caught your attention that the class doesn't seem to engage with quite as much. But in any event, a few places I want to take us from this reading. So the first is from pages 127 to 133. There's a lot of talk about superhero names, or these alter ego names. So David insisting that everyone call him Infrared, Owen insisting that everyone call him Peacemaker, Matthias as Ultraviolet, and specifically on page 147, there's an insistence from Matthias that he be called Ultraviolet in the press. Which I think is interesting when we think about the role of the press. This is beyond just sort of a social thing or even a work thing. This is how you're known to the world, essentially. So why we think this is so important to the characters, again, amongst each other and in the press, are those different rationales, different kind of concerns they're dealing with? Are they the same? I think there's a variety of answers we could kind of pose there. And I think Karen brought this point up in response to Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, which, by the way, I've appreciated the discussion of. Thanks for engaging with that, folks. But Karen brought up this point about the names characters have, about how Dr. Horrible is sort of almost like a caricature of a villain name. And I think that's right. I think that's sort of, you can't be anything but a villain if you're calling yourself Dr. Horrible, unless you're being just completely satirical about it. But these names that the characters in We Can Save Us All are choosing, I think in some ways have similar effects of sort of, trying to build themselves up as heroes, or potentially as villains. I think that there's a lot of intellectual play that Nemeth kind of invites there for how we understand the text. So those elements of it, I wanted to cut ahead a little bit to page 139 to 143, this section 6 here in the book. Where we go back in time and we look at this friendship that David had with Claire Schiller. And basically it's kind of recalling this experience they had with, this girl he was friends with who had leukemia. And we kind of deal with these issues of kind of the roots of feeling helpless. It's a very human problem, right? This story kind of vacillates between sort of what I would suggest are sort of, bigger kind of superhero level concerns, or at least things are being dramatized in that sort of way, versus, just the more day-to-day life sort of things. And this is sort of an earlier, almost formative experience for David of having this friend and being sort of, helpless to do anything about it, and feeling, lost in the absence of someone. I think that speaks to, David's experience with Mateus as well. But in any event, I'm curious what people made of this, what kind of, maybe emotional impact even this had on people, why we think Nemeth went there in the novel. Because it is aside from, a lot of the other content in the novel. This is a piece that I think you could extract, and in many ways it would sort of be the same novel. I do think it's richer for having included this, but I think anytime that we take a step away from kind of the core plot, it's worth considering why the author has chosen to include this material, how it speaks to those more core plot elements. On page 155, this is going in a slightly different direction here. We hear Fu talking about stockpiling AV equipment. This is sort of towards the bottom of page 175. I've kind of marked it with a line here. But so it's, Fu talking, and he's saying, but I'm stockpiling all this AV equipment that needs power. What happens when the grid goes down? I can't just bust out an acoustic guitar. How do I create a soundtrack without instruments or amps? No, I think maybe I'm just a nerd. I'm going to die a nerd and a virgin. So this is, I think, an interesting moment here. There's a very literal, sense of what's happening here, of just kind of, Fu sort of, having a little bit of crisis of confidence and sort of, questioning his value without his tools, without, electricity to kind of, power what he's doing. And I would suggest that, to me, it feels as though that there's also some metaphorical value here in terms of what Nemeth's getting at. In Fu stockpiling AV equipment, how that might connect to the rest of the novel and what these characters are kind of gathering. And sort of the defeated nature at the end of this dialogue where he's sort of, I'm just going to die a nerd, right? What we make of that, what's sense we can draw from that, how that speaks to the broader novel. Because I think it's an interesting moment. And I don't want to say too much because I think there's a lot of room for interpretation there, so I want to leave it for the class to be able to unpack some. I'll try to weigh in on the comments a little bit there too, to kind of, further unpack that depending on what is or isn't said in the online discussion. And then the last piece I wanted to jump to for now is on page 168. This is towards the top of the page, the second paragraph here. It's David looking at Haley's artwork here. And so it reads, as he flipped through the comic for like the 100th time, he marveled at Haley's artwork, which was sketchy yet sure, full of motion. He thought she made them look pretty damn awesome, actually. Her drawings carried a surprising amount of information, but she'd promised to include more detail in the next go-round if David could give her more time. For the first one, though, he'd felt they needed to move quickly and make sure the publication was ready in time for the morning after. Sure, there'd be discrepancies with the reality of their stunt, but he knew an aspirational piece of press was essential. I think that's such an interesting phrasing here. The very end of that paragraph, again, this is the second paragraph of 168, referencing an aspirational piece of press and how that's essential. I'm curious, what folks make of that? What does he mean by an aspirational piece of press? I think we can unpack that just based on what we have in the text here. But more to the point, why he would consider that to be essential in this case, why that's important to this, for lack of a better way of saying it, this movement that the USV is trying to get some movement on, trying to launch this crazy act that they're trying to pull off, why they need this piece of press to go with it. That, again, is sort of depicting what they're going to do before they do it, to be released after they do it, which in and of itself is sort of a little mind-bending in terms of that sequence of events. But okay, I'm going to cut off the video lecture here. Again, there is plenty more we can talk about. We will certainly talk more about We Can Save Us All in some of our classes to come. A part of why I want to cut it off here, though, is in asking you to watch Dr. Horrible for last time, I dedicated a little bit more time to working, listening to a video, watching a video than I ordinarily would, so to compensate, there's a slightly shorter video lecture. And for tomorrow's class, I will post a class. I'm on the fence right now about whether I'm going to do a video lecture. It might depend just kind of how the online discussion goes among students. If this were an in-person meeting day, basically my plan for tomorrow, Thursday's class, would have been to focus on giving you some opportunity to work on your workshop drafts and to ask me questions and just to be in a space where you had to kind of for lack of a better way of saying it, put your butt in the chair and work. I'm probably going to more or less honor that. So if I do a video, it'll be again a very short one for tomorrow. Or if we don't do a video, I'll go relatively easy on the questions I'm going to pose here. But it's mostly kind of a catch-up day. Again, I know this is a pretty intense point in the session where you just had critical essays due. A number of you have still been working on your communal writing project assignments. The workshop drafts are going to start being due effective this Friday, and then carrying into next week. And the reading pace is going to shift because we'll still be looking at We Can Save Us All, but more so we're going to shift our attention to reading our fellow students' work and engaging in that workshop process. So that's going to be its own kind of more intensive endeavor. So tomorrow is going to be largely a catch-up day, just to kind of catch our breath, give you a little space to work on things. I'll put the discussion thread up largely to be able to answer questions for students, but I expect it will be a relatively low-key day for the class. But okay, with that, I'll cut off the video lecture there. So thanks as always for watching, and I'll check in with you all tomorrow.